breathing quiet sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Varochana Mahamudra Mani Padme Jvala Pravartaya Hum.
Please stand and come forward for the chanting of the three refuges. First in Sino-Korean and keeping with our traditions, and then in English. In an effort to be closer, we're going to be sitting at this end. Chisim Quimyane Shiva Samse Chema Chale Sangju Ilche Chi Sim Quim Yane Shivam Sam Se Che Mam Chale Sangju Ilche Chi Sim Quim Yane Shivam Sam Se Che Mam Chale Sangju Ilche And please repeat after me the English translation, one English translation. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
And realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return for another period of meditation, about 5 minutes, and will be followed by a Dharma talk by our priest, Ma'um, on spiritual friendship. Yeah. So when Mom's going to change places with me, so she'll be sitting here after the meditation.
Please join me in some stretching as an end to our meditation. Remembering to breathe as we connect with our bodies in this way. Massaging the ridge of the skull all the way back to the occipital bones. Finding those pressure points in the ears. Feeling the breath through your nostrils. Stretching the lower back. I get to be right in your face while I'm doing this. Reaching upward to the sky. Breathing in, and as we fold, breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Stretching now to the other side. Clasping your hands behind your back and leaning forward, bringing the arms up. Spinal twist to the left. And then to the right. And now some big circles with your upper body. And reverse. Leaning to the right. And to the left. Clasping the hands behind the head. Stretching up to the sky. And as we drop the arms, 10 deep abdominal breaths. Thank you for joining me in those waking up stretching exercises. um, making us ready to hear the words of the Buddha from the Dhammapada. The chapter we're reading from this week is Out of the Forest. There is pleasure and there is bliss. Forgo the first to possess the second. If you are happy at the expense of another one's happiness, you are forever bound. You do not what you should, you do what you should not. You are reckless and desire grows. But the master is wakeful and watches their body. In all actions, they discriminate and become pure. They are without blame, though once they may have murdered mother and father, 2 kings, a kingdom, and all its subjects. Though the kings were holy and their subjects among the virtuous, yet they are blameless. Good morning, dear Dharma friends, and welcome in from the 10 directions. For those I've not met, those who are listening out there in the hinterlands, my name is Ma'um, and I have been practicing at the temple for several years, living here for the past 5 years. And today, our Dharma topic, our Dharma discussion is about friendship. So let me begin by describing a pilgrimage that I just came back from a few weeks ago, April 11th to be exact. Hajusunam Walt, who is one of our dear longtime members, Betsy, Walt's dog, and I got in the car and went on a trip to our farm in upstate New York. It's in a town called Claremont near Germantown. And so, we went along. It was about a 2-day trip. We just sort of took our time, enjoyed the driving through the beautiful springtime in the mountain estates, and then arrived on the 12th. And then when we arrived, the first thing we saw was Osak, our dear former resident and friend, Osak Lee Alexander, who's now living on the farm and managing the farm. And so at first we greeted each other, making bows. And that wasn't quite enough. So we held hands. And that wasn't enough either. And so then we had this big bear hug. And that is what good friends do when they connect with one another. So it was wonderful to see our dear friend Osak. And then Osak introduced us to those living on the farm with him. So there's Jo Young, who is a training student from our Toronto temple. And there are various sentient animal beings. So we got to meet the goats. The goats love to climb on the porch and make trouble and are all sorts of fun to watch. And there are chickens, there's a rooster, and his dog, Pata. So we let Betsy out of the car, and so Betsy and Pata greeted each other. At first they were not so sure. It was a little rough, even for a day or so. But then they too became the best of friends. So here we are on the farm, surrounded by all kinds of friends. And during our stay, we had visitors. Haju and Walt came back to Ann Arbor after a week. And within an hour of when they left, a chala from our Chicago temple shows up. A chala, given his Buddhist name, starts with an A, is one of our very oldest, very original Dharma friends. And while he was there, we received a visit from Polsham and Polsham's son, Darcy, also from Toronto. So Buddhism is all about Dharma friendships. And as we think about Dharma friends, first of all, just think about good friends. Maybe bring to mind an image of some of your best friends. And what comes to mind? It's like I value these people for social connections, for being able to do things, hang out together, entertainment. But they also provide a lot of sympathy and support when I need a listening ear. Friends are there in times of trouble. We can turn to them, and they will just be there for us in whatever way they need to. Friends, especially as we get older, and really at any stage of life, are kind of a buffer to social isolation. And then they help us develop wisdom throughout our lives by defining our priorities. When you're making a decision, it's helpful to have a sounding board, and they can serve as a reality check as well. So they can say, that's not quite how I see it. I think you're not looking at things correctly. And friends, they help us help us practice relationships that we can extend to other parts of our lives. So perhaps to partnerships, when we get into long-term partnerships, family, these kinds of things. So all of these are wonderful characteristics of friends. In the Buddhist context, we think of friends even a little bit deeper than this. And I want to read a little bit from this book. It's called Little Pilgrim. See if I can make it straight on the screen. So we read from this book every day at breakfast. And it's a novel based on the Avantamsaka Sutra. So a very lengthy, well-revered Buddhist scripture. But it's taken up the journey of Sudana, one of the characters mentioned in the sutra. Sudana being an orphan. He lost his family, I believe, during a flood, fire, invasion, something like that. And then he decided that he would go wandering in search of truth. And so in this book, he wanders throughout all of India, really, coming upon many, many different types of friends. Each person he meets is a friend or a special friend with something to teach. And one day he ran into this merchant who had a son about the same age of Sadhana, and they struck up this conversation. So the merchant remembered hearing how the Buddha, and his son was near the Buddha, he remembered hearing how the Buddha had told his disciples that he was their friend. Suddenly, he remarked to Sadhana, happy as a little child, that they were traveling along together like two close friends. Sadhana was happy at the thought of friends of truth. And then it goes on to say, the first band of Buddhist believers along the Ganges who had no absolute being in their creed. So in Buddhism, we do not, worship external absolute beings. So who had no absolute being in their creed, they summed up their social morality as friendship, the fellowship throughout the cosmos between the Buddha and all living creatures, teachers, and disciples. When Ananda told Siddhartha that being together with a good friend was contrary to the precepts, the Buddha corrected him. Having good friends and being with good companions is all of the sacred way. So we have this premium being placed on friendship as part of the Buddhist path. So spiritual friends they're about personal connections, but they're also about helping each other grow in the practice. One of the ways this happens is it's kind of a bridge between self and others. There is another story of this monk, Magaya, and he was an eager young monk wanting to really practice his meditation deeply, gain enlightenment in this way. And so he went off into the forest to practice alone and to do deep practice. But then he discovered while he was sitting in this mango grove that it was anything but peaceful and beautiful there, that his mind was full of malicious, lustful, confused thoughts. That practicing alone maybe was not what it was cracked up to be. And perhaps his practice was too self-involved when you're just off by yourself. You can get into these loops in your head. So Magaya went to the Buddha and asked him about this. He said, this is a confusing experience. How do I gain peace and happiness? How do I proceed on the path? And the Buddha said, 5 things induce release of heart and lasting peace. First, a lovely intimacy with good friends. Second, virtuous conduct. Third, frequent conversation that inspires and encourages practice. Fourth, diligence, energy, and enthusiasm for the good. And fifth, insight into impermanence. And then he went over the list again. He said, when there is a lovely intimacy between friends, that's the first factor, then there is virtuous conduct. When there's a lovely intimacy with good friends, then there can be frequent conversation that encourages and inspires practice. When there's a lovely intimacy with good friends, there is diligence, energy, and enthusiasm for the good. And when there is lovely intimacy with good friends, insight into impermanence arises. So who are these good friends that we are talking about? I ran across the work of a scholar. His name was Mart Lanametz. Sounds French. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, the scholar had done a lot of research into what good friends means in Buddhism. And he offered 3 frames of reference, which I think are useful to us. He said, first of all, good spiritual friends refers to a personal network that ensures transmissions of ethical norms and knowledge. So if we want to learn about precepts and morality. Hanging out with good spiritual friends helps us do that. So number one is that personal network. Number two, good spiritual friends refers to teachers, advanced advisors, or even the Buddha himself. And this aspect, I think, refers to spiritual transmission. To go far along this path, it's important to find a good teacher. And then the third definition of friendship, which is Mahayana. So this comes to a little bit later school of Buddhism. So this third definition of friendship includes bodhisattvas, gods and goddesses, even scriptures. So I find this one interesting because I've heard Haju Sunam say from time to time, I don't know what the answer is. Buddhist, bodhisattvas, gods and goddesses, please help me out here. So she refers to these good spiritual friends. And I've heard Tongsan, one of our good Dharma students, say, diamonds are a girl's best friend. And she really loves the Diamond Sutra and recites that and views that as a source of comfort. So, but in the Buddhist time, reference to scriptures would not have been possible because nothing was written down. And so if you really wanted to learn about the Buddhist path, you had to find others to learn from. You had to find a teacher, and you had to find a Sangha, and so on. So if we go to this frame of reference, I want the personal network, which I consider Sangha, and the teacher and the scriptures. Let's talk first a little more about Sangha. Norman Fisher has this lovely essay on spiritual friendship. And when he talks about practicing with a Sangha, one of the thoughts that he offers is friendships are often forged in silence, perhaps over many years. We slowly get to know one another intimately in the silent space of the meditation hall. We know each other's hands and feet and facial expressions, how we walk and stand and sit. We see the suffering and triumph expressed in body language and facial expression. We share the sound of our voices joined in chanting. We hear our groans, our fatigue, the ways we cope when we don't have our usual social strategies available. So when we're able to practice together in Sangha, especially in person, it often is a period of silent intimacy. Those who have been fortunate enough to be with us on retreats know this experience well. There's another book that we're working with, Social and Community Harmony. This is a collection of Buddhist scriptures by Bhikkhu Bodhi, who is one of our most gifted translators, one who understands almost all of the Pali Canon intimately. And so he has put together this little book on social and community harmony, which really talks about how we foster the Sangha community. And in this book, he has divided things up according to topics. One of them being this chapter on good friendship, which of course, as we know, is a key part of social and communal harmony. So he talks about good friendship in the household life. And this comes from the Pali Canon. What is good friendship? Here, in whatever village or town a clansman lives, they associate with householders or their sons and daughters, whether young of mature virtue or old and of mature virtue, who are accomplished in faith, virtuous behavior, generosity, and wisdom. He converses with them and engages in discussions with them. Insofar as they are accomplished in faith, he emulates them with respect to their faith. Insofar as they are accomplished in virtuous behavior, he emulates them with respect to their virtuous behavior. Insofar as they are accomplished in generosity, he emulates them with respect to their generosity. Insofar as they are accomplished in wisdom, he emulates them with respect to their wisdom. This is called good friendship. So the types of friends that we're seeking here are those who display the characteristics, the qualities that we're trying to develop. So that's virtuous behavior, generosity, wisdom, and deep friendship. So it's important along this path that we choose who our friends are. I think those who are in recovery go through a period of looking at their relationships with friends and maybe even ending up with and choosing new friends. So when you come to a Sangha, sometimes those friends are already made. There's a lot of people on the same path that you can tap into. But also in daily life, we look for friends who can help us gain wisdom. So Norman Fisher, I think, boils this down to looking for good Dharma friends, find people who offer you truthfulness and tenderness. So truthfulness is very important because we need mirrors to be able to see ourselves clearly. And we need those mirrors to be offered to us with soft edges. So there's a little bit of tenderness to it. Norman Fisher then goes on. He says that within a Sangha, we find deep appreciation and harmony despite our differences. Often the most unlikely people show up in Buddhist communities, people who under ordinary circumstances would never meet. And I think of all of those at the farm, I probably never would have met a lot of those characters at the farm. They come from different backgrounds than me, but the Buddhism drew us together. So often the most unlikely people show up in Buddhist communities, yet this disparate group of people manages to find harmony, commonality, and deep mutual appreciation despite their differences. It's not unusual to be in a community with someone who pushes all your buttons. Have you ever had that experience? I know I sure have. Exactly the sort of person you'd avoid at all costs in ordinary life will appear in your Sangha. There he or she is, your father or sister, childhood nemesis, ancient school or workplace enemy, sitting right across from you in the meditation hall. You will have to deal with this person in ways you never would have if left to your own devices. And eventually, they become a valued friend. So that is the true treasure of the Sangha community that we have. And now to talk specifically a little bit more about teachers, because our spiritual growth often involves finding a teacher, someone who is knowledgeable, well-versed in this path and can offer some guidance. In our tradition, I think we are very fortunate because we have several training programs that cultivate teachers. So in our training programs, we cultivate Dharma workers, those who wish to learn by coming to the community and being involved directly in a work practice, things like the garden, things like maintenance around the building, and connecting with other Sangha members who are doing the same thing. So that's one type of training program we have. A second type of training program is Dharma Guardians. And in this program, we cultivate leaders within the Sangha who wish perhaps to do things like lead practice periods or maybe lead a 4 p.m. service, have discussion groups, these kinds of things. And then the third type of training program is for those who wish to become teachers. So once a month, it's like a one-room schoolhouse. So our Dharma workers, our Dharma guardians, and our Dharma students, those training to become formal teachers, we spend a weekend together. And during our weekend, we talk about our practice and we talk about scriptures together. We have some really deep discussions. Lately, we've been having some deep discussions about the teacher-disciple or teacher-student relationship. And so when you're seeking a teacher, what kinds of qualities do you look for? And this is the list that we came up with as a group. I think it's a pretty good list. So when you're looking for a teacher to hang out with, find someone who displays humility, but at the same time, someone who is accomplished and is a good critical thinker, can discern between all the written scriptures that are out there and can discern threads of truth in discussions. When you're looking for a teacher, find someone who is patient. All of us stumble and stumble and stumble again on this path. And so the teacher is patient, realizing that that is part of the process. Find a teacher who wants to work with you. You want there to be some sort of personal connection. We find a teacher who can serve as a silent example. So living in the same community as Haji Sunam, I feel fortunate to just be exposed to a silent example day after day, watching things like picking up trash when we're going on a walk, paying extra attention to how the altar is prepared and cleaned, and carrying an air of silence throughout the day, listening deeply to people talking. These are silent examples that I'm able to pick up on. We look for a teacher who demonstrates the Dharma. Everyday life is the way of Buddha. And so we want somebody who embodies the teachings. While I was at the farm, I was having a discussion with Jo Young, who is a Dharma student studying with Sanha, our priest in Toronto. And she said, you know, Sanha mainly, she doesn't do a lot of direct, she's not very directive, does not do a lot of these direct conversations, but she totally embodies the teaching. And that is so inspiring. And that is how that Jo-Young is able to learn from Sanha Sunam, her teacher. We want teachers who are more interested in questions than in answers. Some teachers who are engaged in wholehearted giving. And it's nice when we can find someone who laughs. It's important to have a good laugh now and then. So there's many layers of Dharma friendship within the Sangha, within teachers, within people along the path. We are developing one name for a good spiritual friend. A good spiritual friend is a Kalyana Mitra, and we are developing this as a specific role within our Sangha, meaning a good spiritual friend who can be there for you, listen to you when you're trying to work through some conflicts within your life, and then offer guidance on next steps. So for those who don't know our Kalyana Mitras yet, we have Sabang, Pat Stuckey, and John Kwang, Michelle Barnes. Both have just tons of experience mentoring people and are very good friends. So you will be hearing more and more about this in coming days. So in summary, please cultivate good Dharma friendships. Not only finding good Dharma friends, but being good Dharma friends. Because once you name all those qualities that you're looking for, you realize that you need to develop those qualities too in order to keep passing the torch along to others on the path, others on our Buddhist path. So to all you dear Bodhisattvas, Kalyana Mitras, friends in the Dharma, thanks for being with us today, and hoping to see you in person one day soon. And to tell us about some ways that you may be able to see us in person one day soon, we have our Dharma teacher, Hai Yun, who will give announcements.
Thank you, Ma'um. A couple ways you can be involved. First off, we are going to, in May, begin meeting in person again at Burns Park for morning practice. And then eventually, as safety rules allow, here in our sort of backyard under a canopy, doing evening service, maybe midday service, weekend services eventually. We would really like to hear from you about if there's a particular time of day that you would feel like you'd like to come and practice in person with us. Our morning practices are really early, so you can't sleep in. On the other hand, they're perfect for coming to before going to work or school. So they begin generally on weekdays, they begin at 6 a.m. in Burns Park, and we meet near that big field there near where the bathrooms are. That's where you'll find us sitting if you'd like to come. We haven't started it formally yet because we want to have a sort of survey with you to see if you would gravitate toward that. And that would be several days during the week, and then on Sundays in the weekend, we would start at 6:30 a.m. And then secondly, we have, am I not being heard? Oh dear. So secondly, we wanted to tell you that Buddha's birthday is coming up on the 16th of May. And with that, we will have services here. And we will actually be doing bathing of the baby Buddha. So we would like you to do that at your house. And we will show you next week perhaps how to prepare for that. And then the other thing, is it okay? Okay. Someone's standing here, and I always think that there's sound problems whenever I take the microphone. It seems like there are. So the other thing we're going to do is an evening service with lantern lighting. So if you're in the e-bulletin network, you actually got some instructions about how to do lantern dedications this week. And Wancho dedicated a cake recipe so that we have a cake. And I think Bopi, who does a cake for us each year, is going to be donating a recipe for next week's e-bulletin. So we'll have lots of carbohydrate laden kind of options for us to celebrate Buddha's birthday. But so we are going to be doing it virtually this year because just the numbers just don't seem to be coming down as fast as they need to in Michigan. So we're disappointed. I know a lot of you are disappointed, but we will make it festive nonetheless. Finally, just our general things. We have Wednesday evening service virtually. So if you'd like to join in on that, it's a beautiful small sitting that we do where we sit for one sitting, do a little chanting and a Dharma discussion, really accessible to beginners through advanced practitioners. So I would encourage you to join that. Just let us know, email us at annarborzentemple@gmail.com or call us at 734-651, 651, 761-6520, cobwebs, and let us know if you'd like to join in. We'd be happy to. And then also, it's such beautiful weather. We are madly planting kale seedlings and other kinds of seedlings that we have propagated. So if you'd like to join our garden crew, we meet at the temple backyard each Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. You can get some dirt in your hands, pull your practice into physical work. It's really a beautiful practice that we have here at the temple. Finally, again, thank you so much for your kind and generous contributions, keeping this temple going during the pandemic and beyond, so that we are vital and thriving for this generation and many to come. So deep bows. Thank you. And I think I'm going to pass it to, well, no, I would like to pass it to Haji Sunim to do the 4 great vows.
Okay, here we go. All right. Please repeat after me, and let's go a little slow to savor these enormous vows that we make. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
Making deep, slow bow. May you enjoy this beautiful spring day. At least here in Ann Arbor, it's almost 80 degrees already. The sun is shining.